Hey, hi everyone. Good morning. So this morning, I think I'm going to start. I have a few things I want to share. Today, I'm going to really get into direct pointing. So yesterday, we talked about the jhanas, which are really these stages of meditative absorption, which, this is the purification of the self structure. Whenever we talk about stages, we're talking about an unfolding through time. So we're talking about purifying the vessel, you know, um, and this is part of it. This is part of the path. So this is the developmental part. Um, but there's, the direct path as well, which is inquiring directly into our true nature, which is here now. It's, just pure awareness. It needs no development through time. Um, Before I get into that, there's a few questions that came in, and I think this will be good to, all of these questions kind of lead to the same truth, So I think this will be good because these questions are sort of swirling around. Um, I think I'd like to address them and then kind of hone in on exactly where they're all pointing to. Um, and I have another little video to share at the end as well. Um, it's called the Secret of Secrets, this one. Um, so the first question was just, could you talk about compassion? Um, so, I think, knowing who you are, like finding out the truth of who you are, brings true compassion, a natural outflow of compassion, or you could say true love. Um, by finding out who you are, the truth of who you are, you're also finding out the truth of who everyone else is. It's the same one, you know. So I think, compassion is a byproduct of being awake. It's integral to being awake. It's not separate from being awake. Um, that compassion that's born out of awakening, um, it's not, like a lot of times when we talk about compassion in the world, it's not the same realization of our true nature that it comes out of. Like our parents might teach us to be compassionate, to be a good person. Um, that's not quite the same thing. It's not the same thing at all. It's it's I should be a good person. It's like this the character is sort of doing what it thinks is right, or which is something totally different. That's the character. It's operating through the character. So that's part of the persona, to be a good person, to be a compassionate person. Um, so that um, that idea, that concept of compassion is part of the conditioned mind. So, and this is part of duality. The very idea that there is a you and a me perpetuates this illusion, and perpetuates non-compassion, perpetuates egoic activity, and um, this sense of separation. So the more we strip away the illusion of this separation. The closer we are to the samadhi state, the more compassion there is, the less ego. And we don't have to be fully in like a full awakened samadhi state. The closer we are, as we move on the path, we move through the developmental part of the path. We have this capacity to drop the mind, to experience absorption and jhanas and all of that. There's less self operating in that. So you could say, as we move through these stages, our baseline of non-duality, or our baseline of being closer to that samadhi state changes. So so the mind, is what creates this division, this split, this sense of you and me, and it creates that egoic, activity and egoic life. So it's only when we are in this division, we're not in that samadhi state. Then we in the big picture, humanity needs spiritual teachers to point us back to that union. And when those systems or teachers fail, then that's when we bring in morality. Then we need a moral code, or it's like we're creating a facsimile of true compassion with the mind. So a moral code is, it means that you've lost the direct connection. You're not seeing the truth. So I need this code to remind me of what's compassionate. And and even those moral codes, whatever it is, the Ten Commandments or the yamas and the niyamas, all of that, even that breaks down at a certain point. Sometimes the ego doesn't even, it's no longer willing to even make the facsimile. So, so then that's when we need, as a society, we need laws then, we create laws to enforce what's right, what's compassionate. So all of these are stages of becoming farther removed from that direct experience of our true nature. So it all comes down to knowing who you are. It all comes down to this one thing. Literally every problem in the world it's a problem because of the split. It's because of this dualistic egoic consciousness. So if we repair it at the root, we find out who we are. It's the I thought is the root of this separation. So when that I thought drops, then it's just a flow of life moving through. It's life, or energy. You could call it love, spirit, whatever you want to call it, but it's being in alignment with that higher intelligence. And I have another one here. And this one, I think at this retreat, I haven't been as comprehensive on the skandhas as I usually am. This question is, I've never heard of the skandhas on my journey. Would it be possible to go through each one in depth? So some of the materials that I shared before the retreat have more details about the five skandhas. Um, but I think, I'll go through it. There's an analogy that I usually use, or a little example, and I think it's very useful. I didn't use it this time, but I'll just mention it now, to really give a sense of what what this whole operation of the false self is. So so this example is the example of it's really this whole operation of the five skandhas. It just means um, aggregates of mind, or mind processes. So it's like the filter that is creating all experience. Um, our perceptions and our experiences in the moment. So this example is the example of experiencing a mosquito. So so imagine let's imagine we're in meditation. We're sitting in meditation, and a mosquito is buzzing around. Um, so there's a vibration happening. Um, and so the skandhas, the first skandha is rupa, which just means form. So there's a sense that there's a body here, and or a form. There's something which is whatever that is. And on that body, the second skandha, Vedana, is there's sensation arising. But what's meant by Vedana, the second skandha, is um, it's raw sensation. So it's not sensations that are good or bad. So these are discrete processes that we can actually see working in the mind. We can have a direct experience of each of these skandhas. So the mosquito is buzzing around, and there's a raw sensation, like a raw, just the pure vibration of that something is happening, buzzing. So we haven't yet come to the other skandhas. We haven't identified mosquito. We haven't labeled it. We have no preference about it yet. Um, there's just this phenomena, this buzzing happening, um, and we can tune into this layer. This is the energy layer. Vedana is just the energy itself, which is prior to um, the perception of things. So then the mosquito lands, and the mind um, identifies it. It says mosquito. So this is where memories live. I have language, I have concepts. This is where we create the perception of things in the mind. So the mind has this. It's a discrete process where it says mosquito. And still at this point, there's no labeling as good or bad. There's no preference yet. This is purely the part of the mind that just identifies things. You know, so there's this concept of mosquito, and and then so the next fourth skandha is the samskaras that we've been talking about. The habit pattern of the mind, the preferences to label something as good or bad. So this is where reactions come in. So maybe I've had really bad experiences with mosquitoes in the past. I know they create suffering. So I have a preference to this mosquito. And so this part of the mind is where the reaction happens. And this is where the suffering comes in. And the sense of I, this me that is, this is my preference. You know, I want or I don't want. This is good. This is bad. So this labeling as good or bad. As it said in the Great Way. This is the disease of the mind. This is where the suffering really comes in. And then the fifth skandha is vijnana, which is the part of the mind that observes all these other skandhas. So this sense of a witness, and so the whole practice, this whole meditation practice, we're becoming aware. We're making this whole process conscious. We don't want any of this activity of mind to be running in the unconscious. So even that attention faculty, like that camera that's putting attention here and there, there's an awareness that is aware of all of it. So who are we? Who am I that is aware of all of those five skandhas? If I can directly experience that awareness that's aware of that entire mind, even that attention and that what we usually call consciousness of the mind, even that is realized to be empty of self. So so the skandhas are really, it's, I don't want it to be, it's not something that we need to learn, as concepts. We need to actually make what, and there's many ways to look at the self structure, many different ways. This is just one language structure. This is just one lens. What really matters is that we touch these, we touch the mind, what's actually going on within you. So these are just the words that the Buddha came up with, which are brilliant. The beauty of this model is that it can actually be experienced. Yeah. So again, we come to inquiring directly into the self, to be aware of everything that is arising without getting caught in it, without this identification. And there's one more question here I'm going to address, and it I think all of these questions kind of fit in because we're seeing the operation of the mind, and this one here really, this question really points out a certain quality of the mind. So this question is, my mind is curious. If awakening, and this is referring to something that came up in the group process sharing yesterday. So it came in after that. My mind is curious. If awakening is stepping aside from body and mind and just enjoying the show, how does this mean that mind will be left in the driver's seat? Does this mean that mind will be left in the driver's seat of my body and do whatever it wants to do? Yeah, so if awakening is stepping aside from my body and mind and just enjoying the show, does this mean that the mind will be left in the driver's seat and it can just do whatever it wants to do? You know, is there a script to its behavior, which will mean that everything is predetermined and the only choice people can make whether to struggle being immersed in the script, and they can't ever change or watch it from a safe distance. So yeah, so I'm going to talk about this. Like the mind wants to know. The mind wants to know how this all works. The mind, um, wants to grasp it and create a facsimile. Just like we do with like I was talking about compassion, rather than, like the mind will ask, how do I be compassionate? Um, but the mind is division. The mind will really never be compassionate. That the little character is just, it's just a collection of patterns and processes. So it's when we drop the identification, the truth is revealed. True compassion is born out of, direct realization. And it's the same thing here. This mind wants to know how it all works, and um, so like what is if I give an answer, what is the mind going to do with that information? It's going to create a facsimile. So we don't want to do that. Um, so this idea of throughout human history, it's been this question of free will, you know, um, and this question of free will only arises out of duality, out of this belief that we're a separate self. Do I have free will? Well, what is that little I? Who is that little I, that wants to have free will? That little ego, you know. So, this is the fall again, the fall of, my will, not God's will, um, and this separation. Um, but the whole question, the whole question and answer game is happening on the level of that egoic mind. So as long as we're caught in questions and answers, um, we're playing that game. We're not um, we're not awake. Um, so the mind asks, can I choose, or am I doomed to play out the script? Um, only having the illusion of choice. But the one asking that question is the illusion, you know? So you eliminate that separate I, and the whole magic show is revealed, you know? So, you remove that resistance to what is, and you see that we're dreaming this character. This is all just a dream within the one mind. So, so when we realize that, this whole idea of choosing and not choosing falls away. Who chooses one thing over another? It's only the dream character. You know, the dream character is choosing. Um, so, in Buddhism, they say that the world of samsara and the world of nirvana are one and the same. Um, the only difference is, um, when I'm awake, when there's nirvana, I know who I am. The game still goes on. The game is as it is. The world is exactly the same. You know, form is exactly emptiness, emptiness exactly form. So it it is as it is. But my resistance, my um, sense of I is what drops away. Um, so that you could say that in that non-dual state, there's um, yeah, there's no I and there's no other than I. You know, so the word I means is it becomes meaningless. You know? So when there's no I attached to the body mind character, then there's just the natural flow of the Tao, you could say. There's an ease in the body. There's an ease in life. Um, there's a grace, you could say. It's only that ego resisting. It's like going down the river and it wants to go a different direction, so there's struggle. So it's like we flow with the Tao. Um, so when we drop that I, then there's no more questions and there's no more problem. And there was a second part to this question. I'll just mention this briefly. So I would appreciate it if you could elaborate on what you mean by questioning every thought. Is there a technique? Um, what exactly would be asked if any answer should be given? Um, do I understand correctly that it's a technique where the mind attacks itself? Yeah, yeah. So I'm not encouraging the mind to attack itself. It's already doing that. Um, it's already dividing itself. It's already in a battle with itself. Um, so we don't want to fuel that battle. Definitely, that limited mind it is the struggle. It is the struggle. Um, it is both the struggle and the one who appears to be struggling. Um, So this whole human experience, it's really just an exercise in limitation, in um, wanting something to be other than what it is. We cultivate this sense of I. We're taught to create this sense of I through our conditioning. Um, and then you know our thoughts are just a result of that conditioning. We inherit those thoughts from our parents, our teachers, our society. Um, so all the teachers, Adyashanti, Byron Katie, they teach these methods of just making it conscious, making our beliefs conscious. What have we inherited, or where's that sense of I entangled with these thoughts? So Byron Katie has a beautiful method that she calls the work. So she asks the question, when a belief or a thought comes up, she just asks, is it true? You know, is it really true? Is it absolutely true? Um, and what is when if I believe it's true, what happens? What does that result in my life if I believe that thought? Is that thought creating suffering? Is that thought creating identification and attachment. Um, and then she asks, who would you be without that thought? If you drop that thought, what would that be like? Um, and it's usually pretty liberating when we drop the thought. So yeah, and then eventually, we go through this exercise many times. We realize, when we believe our thoughts, it creates suffering. It creates this false I, and when we drop those thoughts, you know, that energy becomes free. It's awesome. So, so we can go through the process of, like using, Byron Katie's method, questioning the thoughts, these four parts, or we can just, we come to a point sometimes where we just know the game. We know that believing the thoughts, we can just not believe our next thought because we know where that road goes. Yeah. Krishnamurti said it, so clearly. He just said, no thoughts, no problems. And the last one I'm going to talk about here. So this is a perfect opportunity to talk about this, um, this mind that is, really, um, creating its own suffering by believing that it knows something. Like, so the question that came in is, isn't letting everything be as it is condoning evil? Don't we have a moral obligation to fight against evil? So again, this is, there's an assumption inherent here, and again, there's this mind that thinks it knows. So don't we have a moral obligation to fight against evil? So who knows that something is evil, or bad? So um, you know, every war, every fight, every struggle in the world, there are two sides. The split. There's me and you going at it. And both sides feel that they're right. Both sides feel that the other is evil. So the question is, do I do I really know anything? Um, and there's a little story that is often taught in many different traditions, and so this is those who have gone to the Vipassana 10-day retreats will be familiar with this story. So this is the parable of the horse that ran away. Um, so I'm going to tell this story. I have it here. I'm just going to pull it up. So once there was a small village, and there was a farmer who owned a beautiful horse. And so in this village, the people in the village were very, sort of a culture of always reacting and judging and evaluating. It's just the way the culture was. But there was one guy there who was a meditator, or he did self-inquiry, and he was a farmer, but he was known as a very equanimous farmer, just accepting life as it is. Um, so these villagers, really admired his horse. They said, how lucky he was, how fortunate he was to have such a beautiful horse. So they're saying, this is a good thing. Um, and one day the horse broke out of its stable and it ran into the wilderness. And then the villagers came to console the farmer, and they said, "Oh, what bad luck! How unfortunate! Your horse has run away." And this farmer, he has insight. He knows the truth that his happiness isn't contingent on anything in the external world. So he just says, maybe, I don't know. He has a don't know mind. So he's not showing despair or happiness or anything about the horse. He just was like, I don't know. And then a few days later, the horse returns, bringing with it a group of wild horses. So the farmer now not only has one horse, but a bunch of horses. So again, the villagers, they're amazed and they're like, "Oh, this is so fortunate, how wonderful, like good fortune, your horses have returned." And again, the farmer, um, he has a don't know mind. It's like, yeah, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's good. Um, so then the farmer's son, um, he's trying to tame the wild horses. And one of the horses kicks him in the leg and, breaks his leg, uh, shatters the leg, So then again, the villagers are like, "Oh, it's a terrible luck. The horse is cursed. Terrible. Oh, it's bad." And the farmer again, well, maybe, I don't know. I don't know. And then the next day, um, the king's army comes to the village and they're conscripting young men to fight in a war. And because the farmer's son has a broken leg, they don't take him to fight in the war. And again, the villagers are like, "Oh, you're so lucky," and it just goes on and on, you know, and the whole time the farmer, he's like, "I don't know." He knows life, he knows that we really don't know, and the highest wisdom, you know, the teaching of Socrates, I only know that I don't know. You know, this is the you know the wisest man in Greece. That's his axiom. I only know that I don't know. You so do we have a moral obligation to fight against evil? It's when we understand the delusion of the mind in its knowing. Um, you know, it's only when we think we know, that we perpetuate this endless cycle of attachment and suffering. So this practice is about really seeing the delusion of the mind, not believing our thoughts, um, and inquiring directly into who we are. Who is it that's aware of that mind and its delusion? Um, and these questions have been around for forever. If you look at the Bhagavad Gita, um, it's the same dilemma. For those who've read it, the story, or those who haven't read it, there's part of the story. This character Arjuna is faced with the prospect of war against his clan, his relatives, and he doesn't want to fight his family, but at the same time, if he doesn't fight, he's going to get slaughtered. So it's a real dilemma for him, and so he asks Krishna, what do I do? And Krishna represents the true self, the awakened self. So what is Krishna's answer? Essentially, it's to wake up to the truth. Krishna says, it's not about fighting or not fighting. He says, let me go in your place. Let me go in your place. So when we let go of the little self, the doer, then we let go of the struggle, the current, the Tao will unfold as it will. But our suffering is, it's when we go against that, when there's this little I. It's like the samurais would go into battle knowing that they're already dead, or they're the idea is to be awake, and then it becomes a play. It's a dance. It's a show. It's even when others are believing their thoughts, we see the play of form. We see the play. So I'm going to play a little video, The Secret of Secrets, which will take us into our next meditation. And it's really, it was sort of born out of the Mahamudra teachings. So Mahamudra means the great mind seal. So it's really a non-doing teaching. It's a direct pointing, pointing towards the way to simply be here, which is there is no way to to that, because being is here. So it's really, really a direct pointer to the truth. I'm going to pull that up right now. What we're going to describe has been called the secret of secrets, the esoteric wisdom that leads to samadhi. Samadhi is the goal of all spirituality, its union with the source. The truth of who or what you are, the truth that transcends the limited mind, cannot be seen by means of the limited mind. The still point cannot be reached by means of movement. If you want to realize the still point beyond thinking, let go of all interest in thoughts and sensations, all preferences, all phenomena generated by the mind and senses, and rest in naked awareness, There are two fundamental dimensions to existence in this moment. There's that which is changing and that which is unchanging. Thoughts and sensations are a field of constantly changing phenomena. What is unchanging is the awareness of that field of change. We are usually so caught up in the field of change, fixated on its objects, that we ignore the dimension of awareness. So we start our investigation by becoming aware of awareness, being conscious of consciousness. The challenge with resting in awareness for long periods of time is that most people have not cultivated the concentration and equanimity to stay in awareness. We are addicted to comfort, and the limited mind will want to escape from this exercise. It will find it profoundly uncomfortable and will create every type of hindrance or distraction. There are two primary knots that bind us to ego identification. The body is attached to comfort, and the mind wants to know. If we continue to seek the comfort of the body and continue to seek knowing with the mind, we will never move beyond the limited mind and body. We will remain like a herd animal, a creature that craves pleasure and avoids pain, endlessly responding to stimulus, endlessly doing, and unaware of the dimension of being. To be aware, to be fully attentive to what is happening without the mediation of egoic conditioning, without concepts, without controlling, manipulating, or distortion, without the filtering of the limited mind, is to be present without choosing. Present without choosing, and therefore without a chooser. Every time the mind moves without your willing, even the tiniest movement, it is due to filtering through the conditioning of the self-structure. The path leads to cessation of the entire whirlpool of mind. To realizing all levels of self as empty. How do I drop all doing? How do I drop mind activity? Listen closely. This is the paradox. The limited egoic mind hears that question and wants to know how. But that limited mind can't do it. The mind will always fail in any attempt to realize stillness, because the mind is movement. The mind itself is movement. It is an endless process of doing. We have to make the shift from doing to being. The you that you think you are is a process, a constant movement, a collection of patterns. That you has to die. The pathological pattern of you has to end for samadhi to be realized. Let that sink in. Spiritual teachers have given the instruction to reach samadhi, be still and know. Be still and know the true self, primordial awareness beyond name and form. Be still and know that you are God. What exactly do they mean? What is it that becomes still? Obviously, no one's physical body can become absolutely still, existing within time and space, because time-space itself is movement. Time-space is mind. The universe is big mind, or logos. The first Hermetic principle is that the all is mind, the universe is mental. If the universe is mind and mind is movement, how can I be still and know? How can you be still on a globe spinning 1,000 miles per hour around its axis? Spinning 67,000 miles per hour around the sun. Moving 500,000 miles per hour around the galaxy, and millions more through the universe. Your heart is beating, cells are moving inside, food digesting, the brain producing brain waves. Your blood is pumping, energy is moving. How can we be still? When the spiritual masters say, be still and know, they must be talking about something else, something beyond time and space, something beyond the physical and mental. What is meant by stillness is something that we have no word for in our modern language system. The Sanskrit language, the language of the yogis, has more precise terms which point to the non-dual. The term shunyata is often translated as voidness, stillness, or emptiness. It is what is used in connection with anatta, or no self, the realization of Buddha nature. Stillness is maybe the closest English word, but it is inadequate to describe something that is not of this dualistic world. What is actually realized is the primordial consciousness, which is beyond stillness and movement, beyond time. It is eternal, the ground of your being, the essential nature of reality that does not change. Actually, it is beyond change and the changeless. When our true nature is realized, it becomes obvious that stillness and movement are a duality created by the mind. Silence and noise are a duality created by the mind. Everything is already inherent within that primordial stillness. The movement of the world is identical to stillness. Be still and know. Be in motion and know. It is all emptiness dancing. This is not something philosophical, but an entirely different way of interfacing with the world. Actually, it's about dropping the interface. Dropping the reducing valve, which is the self-structure, and experiencing your true nature unmediated by the limited mind. The so-called outer world is transcended by realizing stillness, which, when realized, includes that which it transcends. The duality of stillness and movement collapses. Realizing samadhi, this great awakening, is just the beginning of the path. Patanjali says that the entire endeavor of yoga is aimed at the cessation of the whirlpool of the mind. Chitta vritti nirodha. You could say it is the cessation of karma, the cessation of deep unconscious patterns on many different levels. When we realize our true nature, we temporarily cease our identification and reaction to the mind. It's like pulling the plug on a fan. When we pull the plug on a fan, the inertia of the fan's blades keeps it going. As long as we don't plug the fan back in, it will eventually come to stillness. Karma is simply the tendency for energy to follow established pathways. When consciousness slips back into pattern, it's like plugging in the fan. Energy follows consciousness. Energy goes back into the old patterns. Another way of describing it is through the law of inertia. A mind in motion stays in motion unless acted upon by an outside force. In the matrix of the conditioned mind that we call the universe, energy and thought cycle through fractal labyrinths that exist on a continuum from micro to macro levels, branching and exploring endlessly. All spiritual practice is an intervention, an outside force, a consciousness which diverts energy from flowing in the conditioned pathways. You have to be willing to change your life. Someone can do all the meditation in the world, but if they go back to their same old patterns, their same old routine, then the wiring remains in place. Our unconscious motivations must be excavated and faced. If, through great perseverance and determination, we manage to not plug in the fan, then there is an actual cessation of the vrittis, a profound silence that is born within the self-structure. Every time we identify with and react to some preference produced by the mind, we plug the fan back in. The longer we remain in awareness, the more the samskaras are purified, the more the fan slows down, and the human vessel becomes more permeable to awareness, the more we become empty of self. Sorry, that was an abrupt ending, but it does end there. So we'll just go right into our meditation from here.